Today, I'd like to talk with you about why we need to ban fossil fuel advertising and why NDP MP Charlie Angus's private members bill to do just that is well worth supporting. First off, though, I want to offer a little tip. I often get asked, how do you know when a climate policy has strength and merit? In other words, how do you know when a climate initiative is actually a genuine climate emergency action? Well, it's long been my view that if you are looking for a shorthand heuristic to judge the worth of a climate policy, look at the reaction of the fossil fuel companies. If a climate policy is announced and the fossil fuel companies are on stage claiming that they can get behind the plan, then friends, you do not have a climate emergency plan. If, on the other hand, the oil and gas companies are protesting loudly and you can see some panic in their eyes, then you have a plan with real potential impact. And by that measure, MP Charlie Angus has introduced a winner. He has clearly hit a nerve. In February, heeding the call of the Canadian Association of Physicians for the Environment, Angus tabled a private member's bill in the House of Commons to prohibit fossil fuel advertising. For 2 years, doctors and other health professionals across the country have led a campaign under the slogan, "Fossil fuel ads make us sick." Their campaign builds on the legacy of laws to prohibit tobacco advertising. Under Angus's proposed law, it's called C-372, an act respecting fossil fuel advertising, fossil fuel companies would be prohibited from paid promotion of their products and prevented from deceiving and misleading the public with respect to the environmental and health hazards of using fossil fuels. More specifically, the bill takes aim at fossil fuel ads that make these dubious claims about the environment and economic benefits of oil and gas. And the reaction to his bill from the oil and gas political and media defenders has been swift and hysterical. The industry promptly set its hair on fire. The online rage machine was quickly ignited by the likes of Canada Proud and Canada Action, which is this oil and gas industry astroturf advocacy group, Ezra Levant, Alberta Premier Danielle Smith, the Sun newspaper chain, and National Post columnists in a fit of performative pearl clutching started raising these garbage claims that the NDP bill would prescribe jail terms just for speaking well of fossil fuels and would criminalize dissenting opinions on climate. If that all sounds incredible to you, it's because it is. For the record, the proposed act was prepared by and legally vetted by Parliamentary Council. The bill's focus is clearly on paid advertising by the fossil fuel industry and its lobby associations. Section 5 of the bill specifically exempts an opinion, commentary, or report with respect to fossil fuels. The bill does contain some tough penalties, some large fines, and possible imprisonment for contravening its provisions, but the bill makes clear that the target is not individuals, but corporations that are the producers or retailers of fossil fuels. And the only individuals who are subject to the penalties are those who are the directors or officers of those corporations who authorize or acquiesce to the offense. And the bill also exempts signage at the point of sale. So, the signs for Shell or whoever at a gas station, they can still do that. In fact, Angus's bill is closely modeled on the Tobacco Act, which successfully controlled tobacco advertising in the face of that public health crisis. But we're not hearing any of those denouncing Angus's bill suggesting that we shouldn't prohibit cigarette ads, are we? Because there's rightly a societal consensus on that score. The National Post columnists were particularly exercised that the bill would prohibit making claims that one fossil fuel, like gas, burns cleaner than another, like oil. Well, do they think that tobacco companies should be allowed to advertise that one cigarette is more mild or has less nicotine or than another cigarette? Of course not. Here's the thing, folks. Advertising works. That's why the Pathways Alliance and the Canadian Gas Association and the LNG Alliance and dozens of other oil and gas companies have poured millions of dollars into bombarding us with false and misleading claims about their supposed climate commitments. And sadly, much of the public has come to believe their false and misleading claims that we can simultaneously expand oil and gas production while still meeting society's net zero goals. By the way, let me say something about those net zero claims that they make. When they talk about net zero commitments by 2030. What the oil and gas companies are actually saying is that their production emissions will be net zero, that somehow they'll, through carbon and capture or some other means, have no emissions when they actually produce this stuff. What they're not counting are all of the emissions when that oil and gas actually reaches market and is burned. Now, here's the problem. Those downstream emissions, or what we call scope 3 emissions, that's 80 to 85% of the emissions. I mean, these claims are like the Philip Morris Tobacco Company telling you that none of the workers in their factory smoked. In the end, who gives a damn? These ubiquitous fossil fuel ads have plastered our public transit. They've clogged our media feeds. They are causing harm and distorting the public discourse as we endeavor to confront the climate crisis. So let's not lose sight of the heart of the matter here. We face a planetary climate emergency. Our children's future is under severe threat. The burning of fossil fuels is resulting in the escalation of extreme weather events. Pollution from oil and gas poses a deadly risk to our health. Every year, fossil fuel pollution is directly linked to 34,000 premature deaths in Canada and over 8 million globally. Simply put, we have to phase out the use of fossil fuels. And in that context, the continued presence of fossil fuel ads sends this confusing and contradictory message. Like, is this an emergency or is it not an emergency? Angus's proposed law is already doing a great service. It's sparking this needed national conversation about the role of fossil fuel companies in perpetuating the climate crisis. And it's asking us to question the social license that we have given these nefarious corporations for far too long. Those of us who understand the severity and urgency of the climate crisis should get behind this bill, defend it, endeavor to see it passed. The regulation of tobacco advertising, that was a long fought fight led by health professionals who understood what was at stake. The cigarette companies put up legal roadblock after roadblock and peddled misinformation for decades as they sought to stave off our efforts to restrict their promotion of an addictive and deadly product. The parallels are stark, except this time, we don't have time for a multi-decade legal fight. So go see your MP. Urge them to support this bill. It's long overdue.